Continuing our journey up west, we go to Pall Mall for the twist, and things take a dark turn. You know those sleepless nights of tossing and turning? Did you know that that was a skill set that you developed as a baby? For a whole bunch of months, you couldn't turn. You were basically rooted to your cot like Wolverine on a magnetic bed. And this is because as babies, we had to learn to turn. It's baby development theory. It's sequencing. First we look over there, then we reach over there, and then we roll over there. Come school time, we put it into practice when we set our clothes on fire, and after that, we're pretty much done with rotation. But I think people don't talk about rotation because of fear. Meet me at the black screen. I've been doing some reading, and it seems that in the Middle Ages, rotation was big. You couldn't go to war and fight with a sword if you didn't know how to rotate. But in the late 1400s, people were using rotation within a pentagram to call the devil. But because of this, they stopped teaching people how to rotate. It became taboo. But I'm going to try and teach you how to perform this lost dark art. Heed these facts. Rotation comes up in 3 different ways. The rotational plane, an imaginary realm. Rotational movement, like Oliver, we're calling twist. And joint rotation, the swiveling of your skeleton. And these are connected, but they're not the same. You need to imagine the plane, know how to twist, and be aware of the joints. The rotational or transverse plane is an invisible construct. You can't see it, but if you could, it'd look like this. Now you think that movement in this plane would make you feel like a rotisserie chicken. Now that's passive rotation, and it's a good visual, but it's not the whole story. That rotation around the spindle is what we learn in the first 3 to 6 months, and once we've got it, we don't really give it much thought, until we're trying to tear up the dance floor. But every day, just to move in bed, to move around out of bed, and to do anything that involves human movement, you need to get busy with the dizzy. But every single time that you use your shoulder or your hip to move, you're rotating through that joint. I reckon it's the most used movement, but the most overlooked for a number of reasons. People are scared, I tell you. And to me, it's the most crucial plane of movement because it's foundational to the other 2 planes, the lateral and the sagittal. Imagine the planes themselves are a 3-story house. You're strongest in the sagittal plane. S is for sagittal and strongest. It gets all the glory because it stands on the shoulders of the lateral and rotational planes. But it's like the other 2 are subterranean though. And the rotational plane is deep underground, hidden from view. And for you to work on it, you need to put on your hard hat. Now not everyone wants to lift, but pretty much everyone is trying to get somewhere. And going from A to B is sagittal. And so it appears as if the body movement is sagittal. But that's an optical illusion. It's like a car going on the motorway. Generally speaking, it looks like you're going straight, but you still got to turn that steering wheel a little and use your indicators to go left and right. And in order for us to move, we use our shoulders and our hips, and they require control of the lateral and rotational plane. And that's why the rotational plane is super important. It's foundational. It's the one that we're weakest in, it's the one that we rarely see, and it's the one that we train the least. Here's an example. Shoulder press, anyone? Yeah, do a bit of shoulder. Rotator cuff exercises? Yeah, I don't know, some sort of rehab physio voodoo. If you get cornered having to talk to someone at a party that you rather wouldn't, throw this phrase in. Yes, well, consider this. Have you ever heard of the benefits of internal hip rotation? They'll leave. But any sport that has a running component to it, one arm or one leg stuff, swinging, or even obscure sports like towel whipping, all have a massive rotational component to them. And what I see is, there's a hole here. When people are choosing exercises, there are lateral and rotational plane ones, but they're more ad hoc or just fad exercises. Last week on Weird and Wonderful Exercises, we looked at the suitcase lift. This week, strap in for the Jefferson squat. And next week, we'll be looking at typewriters. No, the pull-up. Yeah, fire that into. It's a hodgepodge of exercises. You know what hodgepodge means? It means gaps, which means weaknesses, which means limiting factors. There's just no system of thought as to why it's there, what it needs to be, and how it fits into the greater movement matrix. I love that word matrix. We'll come back to it. When I keep saying, identify your limiting factors in training, in sprinting, in weights, in whatever, that's what I'm referring to. Find the gaps. You see, and this is why sagittal plane weights have an inconsistent translation over to many sports and the physique. Now, to further complicate this, the rotational plane is present in every other movement pattern. You see, there's the twist movement, which is one of the movement patterns, and then there's the rotational plane that exists in all of the movement patterns. It's almost like learning the twist is the taster and the basis to work out the rotational plane in all the other movements. So first, you've got to become the twist master, and then master the rotational plane in all the other movements. It's like first, you've got to learn to turn the steering wheel properly. 10 and 2. No palm spinning and reversing out the car park space at Tesco's. Then, you can learn to use the steering wheel effectively in traffic. Like Bourne. And we need to cover the rotational and lateral plane like paying into an insurance policy. You set up your direct debit to decrease your risk of injury though, not to have something to brag about on Instagram. Unless you're going to do something awesome like this.
Get it.
Yeah! Oh, yeah! But before we take on the rotational plane, full contact, we need to put the headgear on and learn to twist. In the next video. Unless you're scared.